All right, let's get to Bibi
Netanyahu, thank you so much for joining us. A central part of the ICC's charges against you and Gallant is, quote,
I dream of a world where we will look back at this moment in history and go, isn't that crazy that we literally had mainstream media outlets interview Adolf Hitler? You know, the same way that we look at like Time magazine covered like Man of the Year 1933 Adolf Hitler, like that shit. I dream of that future because it means that, like, you know, justice has prevailed.
Quote, starvation of civilians as a method of warfare. Now, I know that Israel repeatedly claims that enough aid is getting in and there is.
Did that happen? Yes, of course that happened. I forget who tweeted that once that said, like, Americans only know about World War II history and they still don't know World War II history, but it's so true. Yeah, I mean, I get what you mean, but the 1933 thing was sarcastic and was actually a form of protest against appeasement. Yeah. It's just the most like visible aspect of Western media coverage. But make no mistake, plenty of American outlets literally defended Hitler as like a person who was very dynamic, very charismatic, and also on top of that, claimed that he was revitalizing the German economy, which at the time he was. So the idea that like we did not have a shit ton of phenomenal positive coverage for Adolf Hitler is silly. We did.
It's not a purposeful starvation, and those claiming otherwise are misinformed are lying. Is Israel going to send a delegation?
Is it real that a Zionist group made a secret deal with the Nazis? Yeah, but it doesn't really mean anything. You're talking about the Havara agreement. There are two separate instances, but ultimately it doesn't matter. I find it ridiculous to bring that up as like a real point of contention, just like I find it ridiculous to bring up the Palestinian Grand Mufti as like being formative in Adolf Hitler's understanding of the mind of the Jew and what to do with it. Okay? The Jewish question. Like Adolf Hitler was incredibly anti-Semitic, very publicly so, far before he ever met with the Palestinian Grand Mufti. And the Palestinian Grand Mufti himself was a colonial a part of the colonial apparatus to begin with anyway.
Delegation to The Hague to present any evidence to defend itself.
I think these charges are exactly as President Biden called them. They're outrageous. They're beyond outrageous. This is a rogue prosecutor that has put false charges and created false symmetries.
Rogue prosecutor that we petitioned to put into that position, by the way. I really hope that this dude, Karim Khan, in all of my endless support for the Balds, doesn't turn out to be some freak who ends up using this as an opportunity to defend Israel by being like, oh, sorry, we put forward a shitty ass prosecution. So I guess like we can't get arrest warrants out for the Israeli leadership, but we certainly can for the Hamas leadership. You know what I mean? That's my biggest fear out of this, especially considering that Karim Khan has historically been pro-Israel, which is precisely the reason why Times of Israel in 2021 said that he was Israel's guy. Ironic because it's not a part of the courts, but why the fuck is Israel having a say in who gets to be a prosecutor for the ICC? Same with the United States of America. The United States of America petitioned him. I hope that it's more of like a Jose Andres type situation where someone who is a Zionist themselves are just like, no, this is ridiculous. Like we have to do something about it, and not like a bait and switch type situation. Do you understand what I mean by this? I hope I'm making it very clear, because I still hold out a little bit of skepticism in this moment. Or the Goldstone report. Well, the Goldstone report was, at the time when it was written, was solid. And the only person that went against it after it was released, after getting a shit ton of pressure from Israel too. Every single person that was involved in the Goldstone report literally stands by it.
That are both dangerous and false. And the first false symmetry is he equates the democratically elected leaders of Israel with the terrorist tyrants of Hamas. That's like saying that, well, I'm issuing, arrest warrants for FDR and Churchill, but also for Hitler. Or I'm issuing arrest warrants for...
wow, this is a really good line, man. Keep repeating it.
George Bush, George W. Bush, but also for bin Laden. That's absurd. Secondly, the charges are completely false. Let's take this charge of starvation. We've put in 500,000 tons of trucks of food and medicine for this population, we've taken.
In northern Gaza, the average population daily caloric intake is 245 calories. 245 calories. Monstrous piece of shit. Doing genocide denial. I wonder if Jake Tapper will ask him this question. 245 calories is half of a Big Mac, less than half of a Big Mac. A Big Mac is 556 calories. Here it is. This is the Oxfam report. People in northern Gaza are forced to survive on 245 calories a day, less than a can of beans. How do you know that? Yeah, you're right. When genocide is happening, people have no idea it's going on. So will Jake Tapper? Oh no, I'm saying that about the Big Mac. Come on, bro. I'm a psychotic dieter in a good way. So yeah, that's depending on what you're eating. I mean, that's like 3.5 Oreos. 2 Oreos, 140 calories. I just know off the top of my dome. 2 eggs is 70 calories. Or no, 2 eggs, 140 calories. You're a cancer to society. I'm going to unban this guy. I think he has some good opinions. Let's hear him out. 1 egg is 70 calories. 2 eggs is 140 calories. So here's the thing. Will Jake Tapper ask him that question? You said there's sufficient aid going into Gaza, which every single human rights group that is on the ground working, international and Palestinian alike, has said that you're wrong. That is just an objective falsehood. So let's hear what he has to say.
20,000 trucks. We've paved roads to put those trucks in. We've opened border crossings that Hamas closed down. I've had airdrops that are facilitated, sea route supplies. I mean, the whole thing is absurd. You should know this. I mean, the prices of food in Gaza has dropped by 80%. The markets don't lie. They talk about 23, I think, or 30 cases of malnutrition in a population of 2 million. Okay. The United States in 2022 had 20,000 deaths of malnutrition. That's 3.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Please, Jake Tapper, please shut him the fuck up and ask him the question.
Times more than in Gaza. This is completely false. It's the kind of slander that has been leveled at the Jewish people.
He literally just said, what do you mean they don't have enough food? They have too much food. Now, that's delusional. It's genocide denial, which is, of course, not surprising coming from literally Adolf Hitler. Okay. Let's see what Jake Tapper has to say. He's doing the puppy dog eyes right now. He's like, oh, what? That's shocking.
People for ages, and it's renewed now against the Jewish state. It was false then, it's false now. But one thing, this prosecutor, this rogue prosecutor, didn't even bother to come here. He said he'd come here.
Now he changed the subject. He's like, oh, the rogue prosecutor that didn't even bother to come here. Excuse me. Perhaps you shouldn't have given him enough ample evidence. The Hamas prosecutor, Karim Khan, more like Karim Hamas.
Here, check the facts. He didn't check the facts. He just went out and demonized the Jewish state, and he's taking the ICC down the route of the General Assembly that passes infinite resolutions, flat earth resolutions against Israel, or the Human Rights Council that used to have a reputation that is...
What happened to World Central Kitchen 2 months ago, Bibi? Dude, I really hope in my heart that Karim Khan, who has been like pretty pro-Israel in the past, in the way that he has like refused to conduct certain investigations that were launched into Israel, had a come to Jesus moment, I guess, even though he is Muslim technically. He had a come to Muhammad moment and has changed course dramatically due to the actions of Israel. I really, 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 really hope that is the situation in a Jose Andres style circumstance.
Completely blown because half the resolutions are against Israel, not against Iran, not against North Korea, not against Syria. It's the same thing. It's outrageous.
So,
and false. And dangerous because it endangers every democracy
We should note, though, it's not just the ICC expressing concerns about the lack of humanitarian aid getting into Gaza. President Biden and his administration and their officials, not to mention European.
You mean President Hamas? Jake, are you saying President Hamas has issues with the aid? He's old. He's stupid. What does he know?
Allies of Israel and their officials, they've all been making this case for months that Israel is not letting enough aid in. So when President Biden expresses concern about you not letting enough aid in, is he wrong?
Well, no, we had the same concerns. We were trying to get the aid in.
Dude, shit. Actually, not enough aid was getting in, and we were concerned by it. How much you want to bet he's going to say Hamas is actually the only force disrupting aid delivery? This is, of course, a classic lie. All of the crossings were closed and maintained by Israel. Israel is the only group that is stopping aid from going into Gaza, including but not limited to stopping the Rafah crossing from being operational and going so far as to tell Egypt not to let aid in as well, or completely control what kind of aid goes into Gaza. That's number one. Number two, there have been numerous crossings they've closed unjustifiably, while simultaneously claiming that it's Hamas that's attacking the crossings. They are not. Okay. There have been instances where they did the flower massacre, as you guys know. They opened fire on humanitarian aid convoys, okay, killing a shit ton of people. Settlers are literally disrupting humanitarian aid on the Israeli side of the border, which the police refuse to prosecute, okay? They have now seized control over the Rafah border from Egypt and are directly controlling it. They are also, once again, refusing to let aid in. It's just sitting on the border in trucks. Okay? Not only that, but also these people are starving, right? So sometimes there is chaos in the delivery of the aid. So the civil organs of Palestinian society, the police force, okay? The civil organs of society, the Palestinian police force, which is civil, it's not, they are armed, of course, they are cops, noticed the chaos that was occurring at humanitarian aid delivery drops, so they maintained order. So what did Israel do? Remember, this was a couple months ago, okay? What did Israel do? They assassinated the chief of police and then said he was Hamas. And to this day, they still will target even UN trucks and then claim with drone footage, which they did literally last week, show drone footage of armed people around the UN trucks, cops in full police fatigues, by the way. And they'll show that drone footage to be like, see, UN is Hamas. UN, UNRWA, and UN is working with Hamas. These Palestinians, they have guns. They are Hamas. No, they're not. They're police. They are there to do their very best to maintain order during a genocide. Also, yeah, not only are they refusing to prosecute the aid, the settlers that are stopping the aid delivery, Israeli soldiers and police are tipping off the groups that attack the Gaza aid trucks. This is an article from today. A Guardian exclusive. What has America done so far? All right, remember the pier that we built? That was purely symbolic. It was purely to say, like, see, we're doing our best. We're doing our best. We're trying our best to give Palestinians the aid. We're dropping it through airplanes. We're paradropping the aid. It's killing people. Oopsie. The aid is dropping. When the parachutes don't deploy, the aid is dropping and killing Palestinians. Oops. It happens. Okay? Also, the Pentagon today says none of the aid unloaded from a U.S. pier off the coast of Gaza has been delivered to the broader Palestinian population. It is utterly ridiculous. Needs to be verified, but claims the U.S. is using the pier for weapon shipments to Israel. I don't really understand why they would use this aid for weapon shipments to Israel when they can just like directly deliver weapons to Israel through other means, as America has been doing since the beginning of Israel's latest version of the genocidal incursion. I don't personally understand why they would need to do this. I don't know why. Like, I think that seems a little silly. This actually, unironically, is much more dangerous to deliver weapons through because you can infiltrate the weapon shipments. Like, Hamas could easily infiltrate the weapon shipments and use it to their advantage. Anyway, wonderful stuff, though, overall. So Jake didn't ask the direct question that I wanted him to ask, but at least he's saying, what do you have to say to Joe Biden? He says you're not delivering enough aid.
And Hamas was looting the aid. That's what was happening. They were taking it for themselves or extorting the population. We were letting the aid in from the start. And look, this was my directive from day one. The day one thing was we have to we comport with international law. We comport with the rules of war. We have to get those trucks in. We're getting hundreds of trucks every day in. And that's been an aspect of our conduct of war because we try to get civilians out of harm's way. We've done things that no country, no army has done in history. It's not me saying that. It's General Petraeus saying that. The head of the urban warfare at West Point, Colonel John Spencer, says it. Israel's gone out of its way both in humanitarian aid and getting civilians out of harm's way with millions of text messages, millions of phone calls, and leaflets that we've been dropping, giving up the element of surprise. Israel is given here a bum rap. I think it's dangerous because basically it's the first.
Dude, what if I were to drop a leaflet before I drop bombs on your house? Like, you probably wouldn't appreciate that. This is a ridiculous argument. It'd always be ridiculous. If Al-Qaeda said that they were going to blow up the World Trade Center before they actually did it, would that be appropriate? No. Shut the fuck up. I hate this. I hate this argument. Oh, shit, dude. Russia is actually doing roof knocking in Ukraine, so I guess it's fine now.
First democracy that is being taken to the dock when it is doing exactly what democracy should be doing in an exemplary way. I think.
Yeah, technically they did a roof knocking on one of the buildings before hitting the second one, so I guess it was fine. The first one was bad, but the second one is perfectly moral. What is roof knocking? It's it's not something that Israel does any longer, but originally, back in the day when Israel used to siege Gaza, they would drop an artillery shell on top of a building roof to signal that they are going to take the roof down or take the entire building down. Yeah. Hiroshima, wrong. Nagasaki, technically they were warned by Hiroshima. We roof knocked with Hiroshima. And then Nagasaki, they knew already.
All other democracies, Israel may be first, you're next, Britain is next, others are next too. And the second thing that is dangerous about this, Jake, is I think this fans the fires of
5 minutes, Jake has asked one question, no pushback whatsoever. This genocidal piece of shit is just lying the entire time.
Anti-Semitism that are raging on American campuses and throughout Western capitals. They're pouring gas. He just poured gasoline on it, this rogue prosecutor, Khan. Because, people initially will think this is serious. They think the ICC, this is a serious thing. It's not. Well, it's a travesty of justice, and it's a pack of lies.
Let me ask you, because what Hamas did on October 7th, just to make this clear, what Hamas did is abhorrent, as is the refusal to return the hostages. Abhorrent. But whether or not it was Israel's...
It's false, by the way. The refusal to return hostages is a bullshit narrative that the Western media has run with. That's not true at all. So the framing of this question is already false. Israel is the one who refuses to take the deals that Hamas has presented, I believe, 30 plus times in the past 8 months.
Tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians, including countless children, have been killed and maimed by the IDF in your war against Hamas. Is there anything you and the IDF could have done any differently to avoid all the loss of innocent lives in Gaza?
First of all, every civilian casualty is a tragedy. Every child lost, or every woman lost, or every innocent person lost is a tragedy. But for Hamas, it's a strategy. So while we go out of our way to get them out of harm's way, Hamas goes out of its way to keep them in harm's way, shooting at them if they try to leave the battle zones. But many have left, thankfully I can say that. Now, the ratio, because of our actions, the ratio of civilians to combatants killed is the lowest in the history of urban warfare, and certainly dense urban warfare like this. It's about 1-to-1. There are about 14,000 casualties, 14 to 15,000 terrorists killed, and an equal amount of civilians that were unfortunately killed because that's what happens. But in other arenas, in Fallujah, with a handful of terrorists, 3,000, 4,000 compared to 35,000 in Gaza, the ratio was much bigger than that. The same thing in Mosul. So we've gone out of our way to stop it. And let me tell you, I think that the numbers are also inflated. You know, the UN...
Oh, it's so gross. Dude, anything and everything they will use to their advantage to continue defending genocide. 1-to-1 is 50% is terrible. It's also not correct. No, they're just... Benjamin Netanyahu is saying that every single adult male that is over the age of 18... or over the age of 15, I think, and under the age of like 65 is considered a Hamas militant. That's all he's saying here. That's it. And even then, the ratio is still awful. Yeah, he's gonna bring up the UN saying we have identified 24,000 of the victims, and we cannot identify the rest of the victims because Israel won't let us. That was the point that the UN was making. Of course, because he's a disingenuous, genocidal piece of shit, literally the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler, he's like using that as an example, using that as an opportunity to do more genocidal propaganda.
The UN organizations that are dominated by Hamas in Gaza is giving false information, as is Hamas itself. And people believe these numbers. The other day they came and said, well, you know, it's about 35,000 who are killed, but 10,000 of those we said are women and children. Now we can't say that. We don't know who they are.
Whatever the number.
That's not what they said. Jake Tapper, do a fucking job. Do your goddamn job. You fucking muppet. You stupid fuck. Do your goddamn job. If you don't do your fucking job, I'm going to lose my goddamn mind. Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's too many.
In the meantime, the lie circles. Well, look, yes, one is too many, but...
What do you mean? What do you mean? Oh, any life is too many. Shut the fuck up. That's not the only point that you should be making. If you do truly believe that it's unconscionable that even one life is too many, then you should be frothing with the mouth right now when talking about 35,000 dead. He's literally denying the figures, Jake. God damn, dude.
The reason they're there, the reason we have civilian casualties at all, is because Hamas is...
He literally said UN is dominated by Hamas, bro. What the fuck are we doing here? God, I hate this piece of shit so much.
Preventing them from leaving. I'm happy to say that in the Rafah operation that we've conducted, 1 million people actually left. People said, well, there are 1 million people, 1.2 million, in Gaza. Where are they going to go? They're going to be trapped. Well, 1,950,000 have already...
He's like, dude, we did the Trail of Tears, Hamas version, and it was so good. What are you saying, Jake Tapper? We did it. We moved them. We keep moving them over and over again.
Left. And there are very few civilian casualties because we're doing everything to get them out. This is our policy. It's humanitarian. It's responsible. We comport with the laws of war, and we're the ones taken to the dock. And it doesn't give any solace that they're also taking these killers of Hamas, these murderers, and putting them in the dock. As I said, yeah, Hitler's in the dock, but so is FDR, and so is Eisenhower. Absurd.
After 7 months of unity for your wartime government, there seems a lot of disagreement now about your plans for Gaza, or lack thereof, after a major military operations in Gaza is over. Benny Gantz wants a plan, or he says he's going to leave your government. Your defense minister, Yoav Gallant, says you don't have a plan. He's basically accusing you of trying to lay the groundwork for an occupation, either civilian or military, in Gaza in the future. Are you denying that the plan is for an occupation of Gaza, or are you taking it off the table?
No, I have a very clear plan. I think the first thing, the day after Hamas, Jake, is the day after Hamas. We have to get rid of Hamas, otherwise there's no...
Calling this an interview is actually a gross misuse of the word. And this is a dick-sucking session masquerading as an interview, not even a contentious one, really. You're letting a dude who is at the precipice of being formally charged and criminally prosecuted by the ICC for crimes against humanity on your airwaves basically rewrite the narrative in real time without doing any pushback whatsoever. This is, in many respects, thank you for bringing this up, actually, no different than Tucker Carlson interviewing Vladimir Putin. Like, it's the same exact thing. Tucker Carlson going to Russia and just eating Vladimir Putin's ass in broad daylight is identical to this. He did some pushback too, remember? He was like, oh, well, what about the journalist? You have to release him, sir. You have to release the one journalist, sir. Yeah, he did a lot of pushback too, remember?
Future for Gaza, no future for peace, and it'll be a tremendous victory for not only for Hamas, but for the Iran terror axis that backs it and organizes Hezbollah, the Houthis, and all these other sundry terrorist organizations. So I think we have to defeat Hamas, and we will defeat Hamas.
This is why I need people to understand something very important here. This is why a lot of people yell at me and say, Hasan, you're biased, blah, 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 when I interview people. Of course I'm biased. Everyone is biased. The difference is I admit and acknowledge and tell you what my biases are. Jake Tapper is not going to tell you that he is obviously biased towards Israel, towards defending Israel, towards defending all and any matter of Israeli action against the Palestinian population. That's the difference. That's why people lost their minds when I interviewed the dude who they still to this day call a Houthi terrorist. They're like, oh my God, you had a dick suck festival for the Houthi terrorist who hates Jewish people and blah, 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 blah. When in fact, they did not have the same level of smoke for the BBC or numerous other mainstream outlets that interviewed him after. The reason for why they didn't do that is because those guys are objective. They're doing news reporting. They're not. No one is actually objective here. Everyone has a bias. Will it take the complete eradication of the Palestinians for Americans to realize that the terrorist excuse is the perfect excuse for genocide? No, they will never acknowledge it. We are a settler colony ourselves. Why the f would we ever acknowledge another settler colonial operation that is being conducted with our weapons that is perfectly aligned with our interests in the region? Not that it was true in the beginning anyways, but that Houthi teenager went online and tweeted out that he in fact doesn't hate Jews, lol. I know, it doesn't matter. He said it in the interview too. You lost some audience there unnecessarily, and you shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done what? You are too much biased. Yes, we did. You lost some audience. Guys, there are certain red lines that I personally will not cross, okay? As charitable as I am to those who are on their own journey of learning and understanding, if you automatically think a victim, a survivor of US-backed genocide, of course you think it's unprofessional. Of course, you are literally who I'm talking about. Okay, you are who I'm talking about. You listen to Jake Tapper here, and it is done with a thin veneer of like unbiased professional journalism. He's wearing a suit and tie. He's talking to an organ of the government. He's talking to a leader of a state that is aligned. I don't think I know. I don't care. I don't care. My point is this: their domestic affairs, the Houthis or Ansar Allah, and their domestic affairs ultimately are inconsequential when I'm having a conversation about the actions that the entire Yemen population that is now aligned, by the way, regardless of the civil war, regardless of the genocide, regardless of what their prior positions were, when talking about shutting off the Red Sea in an effort to try and defend Palestinian lives and make the Israeli genocidal campaign more costly for them, I am on board with what they are doing. And I am open about that. I'm open about that. If you consider that to be biased, then yeah, that is my bias. My bias is anti-genocide. Okay? What? I was chanting Yemen slogans on protests in front of police. I don't know what the fuck you're saying, dude. My biases are what normal people would consider convictions. Okay? Convictions. If you take issue with the way that I conduct myself when I am trying to humanize a teenager from Yemen, okay, that is a survivor of one genocide and actively criticizing another, and you consider that person to be an enemy of the state that needs to be eradicated instantly, and myself included, okay, alongside him, then you're an asshole. I don't care if you leave this community. That's my point. That's the issue. It says more about you that you saw a 19-year-old Yemeni teenager and immediately thought this is a terrorist and he's a bad guy, and not a human being who's 19 years old who for much of his life experienced massive famine directed by our allies in the region, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, with American weapons. Death and destruction is all he knows. In that interview, there were plenty of aspects of that conversation where I tried to navigate in the best possible way without like making it contentious to genuinely parse through his opinions. That is why I asked him the question on whether or not he was shocked to find out that there are many Jewish people that lead the protests against Israel here in the United States of America, knowing full well that plenty of people, especially young teenagers, kids in general in that region, have never even seen a world where Jewish people would dare stand up and protest against Israel. That's why Rafat, the famous scholar that was assassinated by Israel alongside his family, openly admitted that he harbored anti-Semitic sentiments until he came to the United States of America, where he met the first Jewish person, the first Jewish anti-Zionist that he had ever met in his entire life. Because in that side of the world, Zionism is, by Israel's own admission, 1-to-1 equal to Judaism. That is the way that Israel presents itself. That is why we say that this is incredibly damaging for the safety of Jews all around the world. You being open and honest about being a terrorist-loving hack dipshit doesn't suddenly make... Oh, we missed it. Doesn't certainly make it okay. You didn't parse through any of his opinions. You were asking him if he liked Western food and anime. You basically ate whipped cream out of his ass for an hour. Yes, brother. I'm telling you what my goal was. And you are thinking that this is an opportunity to literally use my words against me. I'm telling you, my goal was to humanize him. Okay? And obviously, for many of you, that didn't work because you will never see him as a 19-year-old who was victim to a genocide. You will only see him as an enemy combatant because you've made up your mind. He's too brown for you. He poses with guns. He stated that he was not Houthi in that conversation, but that doesn't matter because you personally think that's unacceptable. And yes, you're correct. I treated him with the same respect I treated the 16-year-old Israeli, despite our disagreements, despite all of the, genocidal things that the 16-year-old Israeli teenager was saying as well. It was not a debate in that situation either. But a lot of one-dimensional racist chatters fail to comprehend this. That interview itself, I got banned, lol. Yeah, then you got unbanned. Suck my dick. Of course you got banned, by the way. This is like not a thing. This is not a valid criticism. What you said was ridiculous. And under normal circumstances, of course you would get banned. You get banned in any community if you said some unhinged shit like this towards the person who's streaming. Like the notion that you should be allowed to say whatever the fuck you want about any streamer at any particular moment and they can't ban you is ridiculous. You're not even trying to mask your resentment with like a little bit of intellectual curiosity. You didn't even hit it with a just curious. Anyway, the irony, of course, is that many journalists reached out after that interview that I conducted with the supposed Houthi terrorist and said that it was phenomenal. Jeremy Scahill being one of them. I thought you wanted us to be honest. I'm being open and honest about my beliefs. Yeah, now you're getting timed out by Fossabach because you're spamming. Yeah, brother, I think you mistake something. Just because someone is open and honest about their beliefs doesn't mean that they're still idiotic beliefs or even harmful. Okay? I'm a terrorist-loving hack dipshit. You didn't parse through any of his opinions. You were asking him if he liked Western food and anime. That part is humanizing the person that you have declared a enemy combatant. There are plenty of people who come in here, by the way, who are open and honest about their Nazi opinions, and we ban them as well. It's so stupid. You're still arguing that a 19-year-old Yemeni teenager is actually the greatest evil terrorist anyone's ever seen, by the way. I'm not a Nazi now, lol. No, that's not what I'm saying, you dumb. No, I said if a Nazi in a oh my God, why are these guys so stupid? Why are Reddit debaters so dumb? I'm saying that if a Nazi came in here and were open and honest about their Nazi sentiment, I would ban them too. Openness and honesty in this circumstance is not like this magical shield that you can use in every single instance. I'm offering you the dignity and trying to give you a response to the many different ridiculous claims that you're making. But we're going to move on. Anyway, Let's get back to this idiotic interview.
Rafah is the last stronghold of Hamas terrorist battalions. We'll defeat them. That ends the intense part of the fighting. But once Hamas is defeated, what we have to do is have sustained demilitarization of Gaza. And yes, on this, I think the only force that can prevent the resurgence of terrorism for the foreseeable future is Israel. At the same time, I want a civilian administration that is run by Gazans who are neither Hamas nor committed to our destruction.
You're taking it.
Guys, he plays chess with pigeons for a living in hopes that the pigeons grow. I mean, I've also repeatedly explained why I do this sort of thing. It's not for that immediate individual. It's more so for others who may also harbor similar resentment that come in here or may be confused by it, that come in here to hear what I have to say. It's never specifically about changing the mind of that individual. Sometimes it does work.
It off the
and
table.
The third thing that we need to do is, no, I'm not. I'm putting it on the table. On the contrary. No, that's not true.
I'm saying you're taking off an Israeli occupation of Gaza. You're taking off the table an Israeli occupation.
If you mean resettling Gaza, it was never in the cards, and I said so openly, and some of my constituents are not happy about it, but that's my position. The third thing that I would do is have a reconstruction of Gaza, if possible, done by the moderate Arab states and the international community. That's demilitarization, civilian administration by local Gazans who are not committed to Israel's destruction, and responsible reconstruction. That, I think, is a realistic plan, and I've said so. Look, if some people are not happy with it, maybe they want to put in the Palestinian Authority that still teaches its children to, seek the destruction of Israel, pays
Can you cover the left-wing parts of the Palestinian resistance? I feel like too many leftists are supporting Hamas out of a campus need to find a group to get behind. It doesn't matter that the DFLP and the PFLP exist, okay? Most of the secular leadership within the Palestinian resistance have been assassinated by Israel throughout the past 75 years. The reason why people defend Palestinian emancipation is on the boundaries of humanity, not because they have to agree or because they have a campus opinion or they are operating on America bad perspectives. I think this is false, okay? We have personally talked about a lot of the secular parts of the Palestinian resistance, or even the outright Maoist, outright objectively socialist aspects of Palestinian resistance. It doesn't matter, especially when the PFLP and DFLP currently are operating alongside Hamas. They are. Every part of the Palestinian resistance is operating alongside Hamas. Why? Because Israel is currently engaging in an offensive campaign in Gaza. This is precisely the reason why on October 7, while Hamas and other Palestinian resistance groups engaged in offensive operations that I would consider to be atrocious in certain aspects of it, which were still, of course, not justified, but understandable, all things considered, after 75 years of occupation. That's why I say Israel is directly responsible for October 7, because you cannot keep pushing people into a corner and expect them not to lash out. But ultimately, there is no political ideological boundaries in which people are defending Hamas because they're Islamist fundamentalists or something like that, or defending Hamas because they're anti-America across the board. That's why I think those Palestinians would kill you if you're queer in Gaza takes ring hollow. You don't defend people's humanity because they agree with you. When I say Medicare for all, I mean for all. That means Medicare for people who disagree with me, Medicare for people who want to kill me, Medicare for Nazis even, okay? This is not a conditional allegiance that I have. There's no transactional nature of like offering human rights to all people unconditionally. It just means unconditionally. The goal overall for systems is to make it virtually impossible to have reactionary sentiment, to harbor reactionary sentiment, to become a Nazi.
Terrorists, the more Jews they kill, the more they pay, supports terrorism. That's not my position. I want a different future for Israelis and Palestinians alike. I think it'll affect the future of peace in the Middle East, too.
Two more questions for you, sir, because I know your time is limited. Three people familiar with the ceasefire discussions that fell through earlier this month tell our reporter, Alex Marquardt, that Egyptian intelligence quietly changed the terms that Israel had already agreed to in order to get Hamas on board. Does this raise concerns for you about Egypt being involved moving forward?
Look, I think we have a goal, which is not only to defeat Hamas, but also to release the hostages. My government.
Bullshit, bro. You don't even wear the fucking release the hostages pin anymore because you don't give a the hostage families and friends of the hostages and people that want the hostages released in Israel are his number one enemies right now. Okay? They are the ones who are literally protesting in the streets every day for the past 8 months at this point. He does not give a fuck about the hostages. The fact that Jake Tapper is like talking about the hostages or letting him talk about the hostages as though he cares as anything but a talking point is so ridiculous. Ridiculous. Oh, he cares about them so much. That's why he's lasering them with American rockets, mind you.
The government has been able to secure the release of 124 hostages so far.
FTP.
And we're committed to get the rest. Hamas, unfortunately, has been hunkering down on a demand that is simple. They say, well, we can release the rest of the hostages, maybe. But in order to do that, you have to get out of Gaza, end the war, and allow us basically to regroup and reconquer Gaza. And they vowed to commit the October 7th massacre, this horror of beheadings and raping of women, beheading women after they rape them, the burning of babies, the slaughter of the innocent, the taking of hostages. We'll do that again and again and again. So that's something I won't agree to. And I hope Egypt understands that we can't agree to something like that. That's not something that we can countenance, and neither can the people of Israel. By the way, the overwhelming majority of Israelis support this policy. And I can tell you that the other day, by the way, yesterday, we had a resolution in the Knesset where 106 out of 120 Knesset members supported a resolution that says you cannot accept the ICC statement. You cannot accept it. We'll reject it. It's a farce, and we have to stand up to it. And I can tell you, I don't remember that Israelis, I don't remember the Knesset agreeing, 106 Knesset members out of 120 agreeing on anything.
But Mr. Prime Minister, you say that the majority of the American people are with you on this plan, but a poll from the Israel Democracy Institute from this month showed a majority of Israelis, 56%, say getting the hostages back home should be a higher priority than military action in Rafah. So don't you just fundamentally disagree with the majority of the Israeli people?
Well, I've seen other numbers, but I take a different thing. I don't say this is more important than that is more important. I say both of them are important. And in fact, the military action that we're taking against Hamas is, in fact, the way to get these hostages, because without military pressure, basically without, squeezing them, Hamas is not going to give up anything. That's the reason they gave up the first half of the hostages, and that's the reason they'll give up the second half. So I see them as complementary and not contradictory goals, and I intend to fulfill both of them.
Before you go, sir, we should note, while we appreciate your talking to us, according to the independent Israeli media monitor, the Seventh Eye, you've done about 24 interviews since October 7th, but all of them in English, and all the outlets outside Israel. I don't want to begrudge that.
It's crazy that this is the most contentious he will be on this entire interview. That's crazy. I wonder why, by the way. I used to be a sub, but after what you said about 10-7, it's clear you never cared about the hostages. Bro, you literally need to stop caring about the top of the hour ad break to this degree, because if you think that this is a good way to do a debate at the top of the hour, you're wrong, okay? I'm on the ball, baby, and you dropped it. The ball, you dropped it. I have it, okay? Here it is. Weak. At the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break as that chatter tried to serve and failed to do so. If you no longer want to see those ads, however, if you want those ads to be basically anything but a dream, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free. 2-3 hours ago, we're complaining about Chad doing layup ad breaks. Now you're saying weak? Yeah. Do better. Do better, chat. Oh, I saw this. Wait, what the fuck? Why is this censored? I didn't realize it was like a dress that she wore specifically with the Palestinian colors. That's so funny to censor that shit. Anyway, if you don't want to be censored at the top of the hour, Like I said, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free, or get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Here's a 3-minute ad break now.
Appreciate you doing an interview with us, but why are you not speaking with Israeli journalists the way you are with me?
That's the tendentious reporting of a lot of the Israeli media. So I can tell you what they're not telling you is I've done, I don't know if it's 24 or 20 or 15 press conferences with Israeli media. They can ask anything they want, and they do. And I just met Israeli reporters the other day in Rafah. In fact, 3 days.
Bitch, he's right. You didn't do a sit-down Hebrew interview at all. I wonder why.
Ago, and they ask me all the questions they want. So that's simply not true. I speak to them, and I speak to you, and I welcome the opportunity to tell the truth and dispel the lies in both mediums.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Fuck you, Jake. Oh, I appreciate it. Fuck you. Fuck your appreciation. And fuck Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu can suck my dick. Anyway. Yeah. He knows that American media will be infinitely more favorable to him and all the lies he's spewing than Israeli media, especially depending on what type of Israeli media we're talking about. Because for all of its faults and failures, Benjamin Netanyahu is still deeply unpopular in Israel, and the Israeli media, regardless of their Zionism, will absolutely, ask him some very damaging questions, specifically with respect to the Israeli families that are protesting, and grill him a little bit. Oh,